Welcome to A Canadian Investing in the U.S., a podcast and YouTube channel focused on Canadians buying real estate with host Glenn Sutherland.
Welcome to a new episode of A Canadian Investing in the U.S. with Glenn Sutherland. This week, my guest is Chris Micucci. Chris, you want to give everybody a bit of an intro to yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Micucci. I'm a college professor full-time. Started getting into the real estate investing just over 3 years ago. Took Glenn's class. A month in, he sent out an email that he wasn't supposed to send to the class members, bought the house within 5 minutes, and have been investing since. Bought many houses over the 3 years, some flips, some burrs. And now from there, I've gone into lending on the houses. So a Canadian mortgage agent, but work with American lenders.
Yeah. So I don't know if people caught that, like right off the start, like I made a mistake every once in a while. I send an email blast to the wrong list, and he jumped at it, right? I don't think people realize how important the action is. Everyone thinks it's about having some money, honestly, about investing. But I think it's I don't know how much we want to go into it, but like I think that there is the people who are successful are the people who take action because it's impossible to do anything without that. And then it's the people who put the effort in. And honestly, that's why even like I don't know if we were really going to go into this, but like Chris and I started working together on like several projects as GP roles, originally as joint ventures, and everything just it grew, right? And even for myself as an operator, that's the people you want to surround yourself with because you can see the enthusiasm. I think I don't know if that's the right word.
I think it is. And I think so. Part of it was when I was listening to your podcast and many of them, it's always the analysis paralysis that you hear about. So it's always hesitating. And I mean, it doesn't matter how good of a deal you could talk yourself out of it. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to waste time. I don't want to be that person that takes a class, listens to the podcast, and 6 years later is still that guy sitting in the background. It's like, you know what? Just do it. It's real estate. To me, I don't think you can really ever lose, loosely saying lose, but I mean, it's, you own something, unless there's
patience, you'll do okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, over time, I mean, even those people in 2008 that have bought houses, if you wrote it out, those houses are now back to where they were. So I'm like, you know what? I just got to do it. And that's like you said, I mean, I'm enthused. I love doing it. I love researching. It's like I said, I mean, it's a full-time job on top of mine, but I enjoy doing it. So I think that, like you said, that gets you interested in it. You want to learn about it. So makes that difference.
Oh, yeah. And then I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but you more recently, started getting into lending.
Yeah.
Why go down that path? What's exciting about lending? I don't know. Tell us about lending. Maybe even let's talk about even some of the opportunities for Canadians looking at doing lending, because I think I even watched some other people's podcasts and stuff because I do, right? That's how you grow. You can't just be in your own little bubble. But I was watching other people, and they were like, "There's this huge opportunity for Canadians lending in the U.S. right now, getting lending in the United States right now." And I'm kind of going, "Well, there is, and if you know the right people, and
Yeah.
But anyway, tell me a little bit about lending and what it looks like for Canadians."
Yeah, so I got my mortgage agent license up in Canada really because, well, you can only buy so many houses with the money. So it's like I wanted another avenue to bring in some income, and been refinancing some houses down there. And I just fell about the company Lend City, who I'm working with now. I didn't realize, but they were a Canadian company. And then I figured, you know what, this is a great avenue because with my background, I mean, a lot of, like you said, Glenn, a lot of people are saying, oh, we can lend in the States, but they have no background. They can just tell you, here are the numbers, this is how it works, and that's it. Where I can have the conversations about, hey, are you looking at this? Or I just had somebody wanting a loan without even knowing the ARV when they purchased the house. Which is crazy. It's like
insane.
Next time you buy a house, this is literally number one that you have to have. So,
yeah.
I love it because, again, like you said, the enthusiasm is for the US investing. So the lending just kind of came in part. And as somebody who'd been using American lenders, now I have that relationship. I can tell those Canadians, even you've referred some people. I have that relationship as a Canadian to know what we go through. It's not just an American, oh, yeah, do this, do this, do this. So the options are there. The lending in the States is very different than Canada, as you can really, it's the DSCR. So does your rent cover mortgage, taxes, and insurance? There's a lender on it.
Yeah.
Really, the amounts above 100 is great. Below 100 is a little bit tougher, but there are a lot of options for Canadians because, again, we're not looking like in Canada. There's so many steps that we have to go through. The States, really, it's does the rent cover your overhead?
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot different and it was one of the reasons that I switched from investing in I used to do a lot of Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge area for investing, a little bit over in Strathroy. But when I was in Canada, in Ontario, which I still live. But it was one of the things because before I made a spreadsheet and I said, hey, I want to leave my job was the goal right from the start. And I looked at how many properties I was going to need based on the cash flow I had from I think at the point when I started doing the math on it, I had 3 or 4 or 5 properties, and how many do I need in Canada in order to be able to pull this off. And the number was I can't remember. It was high enough. And I was when I went to I think it was to buy my 6th or my 7th property in Canada, they cut me off. And I even talked to some other Canadians about this, and they were like, well, no, you can get 10 mortgages in Canada. And I'm like, yes, legally you can, but it's based off of my T4 income as one of the qualifiers. And I didn't make enough to support having 10 properties in Canada because basically, I think I'm not a mortgage broker, so I don't want to misspeak here, but from my understanding, they like to count sometimes it depends on the kind of property, but half the rent or part of it you're qualifying for, right? When you're doing this. So when you're going to invest in the United States, that's not the case, right? So
No.
tell us about a little bit what the qualification for a US mortgage looks like. What would help a Canadian? Does Canadian credit scores, American credit scores, income, what would help them and what helps qualify them for a mortgage in the US? I have more free content. So if you're interested, I created a PDF guide and a video to go along with the PDF guide to complement it. And what the guide is all about is the 5 most common mistakes that Canadians make when investing in the United States. So if you're interested in this free guide, go to CanadianInvestingInTheUSA.com/mistakes. And let's go back to the podcast. And it's free.
So, as I was saying, really, the qualification is rent. That's where it comes from. The Canadian credit score has no value whatsoever. Some will ask just out of curiosity, but again, they're not going to do any hard pulls against your Canadian credit score.
Is it more to figure out if you're a risk, you're even how your credit's ruined?
Yeah, even that. We have lenders that will lend on a losing property. You could have something to make it easy just for numbers. If your rent covers the mortgage, taxes, and insurance dollar for dollar, you're at 1.
Yeah.
So it's an easy DSCR. That's the calculation. If you go below it, most lenders will not, but some will go down to 0.75. So you could be losing 25% on I know it's, please don't come to me with those properties because I'll have to talk you out of it, but you can go down. Now, the higher you go above 1 does typically make a difference. So really, that's it. If the higher you go, the better it is for the rate. But other than that, you can buy a property without a job in Canada. As long as you have that money for the deposit and closing costs, that's all they're worried about. Do you have the money? And you can go from there.
Yeah. So I've heard this different from different lenders. And some of them want to see the deposit in the U.S. seasoned for a certain period of time. And some of them, they just never ask. And you can just show up with it, just wire it straight from Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. You could have it in a HELOC in Canada and they'll take that. That's the one
just
thing.
Liquid enough that you can use it, I guess, right?
Yeah, exactly. They want to see that the liquid is there. But as Glenn said, some lenders are different. The one thing is it's not like Canada where it's like, oh, everything went down a quarter point, where this is in March that we're recording this.
Yeah.
In the States, every lender is different. So it's not as easy as like, oh, my friend got 7.5%. It's like, well, that's great because their loan was higher. It was in a different state. It was A, B, and C different things. So every lender has different, like Glenn said, some want to see it seasoned in your US bank account, some let it be in Canada. Some just want to show it on up on time. The only thing the US lenders all have is they want it in an entity, which, again, if you've listened to any podcast, Canadian podcast, they would tell you should not be buying in your own name.
Okay. So just to summarize this, if you wanted to make this to get the best interest rate, ideally you'd want a higher amount for the loan, right? You're going to want to
Yeah.
close this in an entity. There was one other thing you said. My brain's going to mush.
The rent, more rent money,
Oh yeah,
more
higher rent,
extra.
higher
Yeah. Your
DSCR
income
ratio.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Your
If you can have a
income is
nice, good
higher.
high ratio, a higher amount for the loan, and I know that a lot of people think that's crazy, right? It's like the more money you want, the easier it is to get. I find in the United States,
Yeah,
and the reason is because a lot of times they're selling these loans afterwards, and if they're too
yeah,
small, they're just under 100 grand, they're just it's hard to sell
yeah,
them.
yeah,
Is because it's a
exactly.
different kind of lending world.
Yeah, so yeah, and to touch on what Glenn said, it's in Canada, when you get a loan with CIBC carries it the whole way through. Whereas in the States, CIBC might start the loan, but then they sell it to RBC and then they take it. So the lender is really the middleman to get that step to sell it. So that's why they want it to be making money. As Glenn said, really over 100,000 is the easiest. If you're under 100,000, there are some that if the house is worth at least 100,000, but the higher you get, the easier it is because, as Glenn said, it's easier to sell because they're going to make more money.
Right.
7% on a $50,000 mortgage is a couple $100 a year, whereas 7.5% on a couple 100,000, now you're in the tens of thousands.
So I know that there's like a lot of different lending programs in the US, but I think a lot of people, are at least the most common loan would probably just be a purchase loan, right? For that a
Yeah.
Canadian's doing like a refi loan or a, cash out or a fix and flip or anything. But I think the most common would just be just a straight up purchase loan. They're buying something that's in, pretty close to rent ready shape or shape for them to use as like a vacation rental. That might even be a different loan anyway. But anyway. Um, do is if the property is vacant, does that have any bearing on, helping you with the loan or hurting them with the loan?
It can hurt for the rate, just not to know. But whenever you're getting the loan, they do the appraisal. But anytime you get the appraisal done, they also check to see the rent appraisal. So there's Rentometer, those places that you can get the websites and
Approximately.
find numbers, but they dive a little bit deeper into it. And then they will qualify you off that. If they're like, hey, you're going to make $2,500 a month. We know you're just buying it. There's nobody there, but
But it's coming, yeah.
yeah, it's coming. They see what the value is. So it can hinder it. I mean, we're talking minimal, not full points, like a tenth of a point, but there is some strike against you if there is no rent. But then again, some lenders, like I said before, they don't care. They know you're going to rent the property.
Yeah. And then for I'm just thinking about like underwriting, like from you doing this now as a mortgage broker and before like and still existingly like starting off by being an investor doing a whole bunch of flips in the US, burrs, refinances, doing everything in I wanted to state that first. You were doing all this other stuff first and then going into doing loans and lending. Does it change your underwriting at all? The way you look at stuff, has anything changed from mentally in that sort of gap or that time period of looking at it from the other side? Hello, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that I've created a new coaching program. I believe the new coaching program has way more value than any of the programs that have even existed in the past. What we've done is pre-recorded all the lessons so that you can work through it at your own pace, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to meet up on a regular basis to answer the questions, do deal analysis, and actually spend our time together working on things instead of spending our time learning things. I think this will make a seamless transition to buying in the United States and will help you solve a lot of your problems. If this is of interest to you, go to glensutherland.com/coaching. I hope to help you guys invest in the United States, and I hope we provide as much value as possible. Back to the podcast.
To me, it's more about having the structure and being organized. I think that would be one thing saying, because when I reach out to people, do you have this paperwork? Oh, I don't know where that paperwork is. Where is that? So one thing, being on this end, if you're going to look for loans, organize your files. Have everything, if you have the corporation, the LP, LLC structure, which is really the common one for Canadians now, have those paperwork and not have to search for it. It takes forever, but again, having that. But no, I think it's speak with a lawyer or somebody who knows those numbers so you set it up straight, because I just setting up a loan for somebody that they set up an LLC, they didn't have an EIN. They had everything set up, but they didn't provide the EIN. So there's those hiccups and there's always workarounds, but definitely speak, as I'm seeing the customers come in, with a lawyer, somebody who knows Canadian versus the US, not just an American that knows how to set up structures. Their structures are very different than ours.
Yeah. And like I've been working on some loans with you. So I know that you created a checklist to like things they needed. What were, you mentioned the EIN wasn't there. What are some of the other things that sort of Canadians have surprised you with as you're going through it, that you're trying to rule out right from the start?
Well, like I said, the one buying without having an ARV on the house, so it's kind of no idea with that. Yeah, I mean, those would be the biggest ones. Showing up without having all the documents, I think, would be the biggest surprise, and not knowing your ARV, because it's hard for me to go with the bank and not know. Again, we have to get the appraisal anyway, but again, having that checklist, and again, if you reach out to me, I can send everything to you. It's make the process easier on yourself and have everything, organize everything, have it together so you just know where everything is.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the time. I'm trying to keep these episodes around like 15, 20 minutes. And my idea was to try and cover two things in this podcast. And I wanted to go into like all the investing, all the stuff you've bought in the US, how some of the projects, how it all went. But we're kind of getting to the end. If we wanted to like say anything quick, is there anything we want to cover there? Otherwise, maybe I'll go into my last lending questions and we'll wrap it up.
So for the investing, to quickly sum it up, as I said, the analysis paralysis is just something, it's going to happen, but don't talk yourself out. If you want to do it, there are deals, and don't rush into the deals. I have some, again, people reaching out for the lending, and it's like, well, we have to make this work. There's a deal this week, there will be another deal, there will be multiple deals. So as much as I say you can jump into it, don't push yourself into those deals. Set up a good team wherever you are. It's, go down. I mean, a lot of people are investing in Ohio, so depending on where you are in Canada, make the trip, meet the people. Again, you're going to have hiccups. Glenn and I have had hiccups with contractors, but don't be discouraged just because of one. We've had hiccups where we've met better contractors, so it has worked out in the end. So those strikes, take them as a learning lesson. People would say in so many things, don't take those bad things as necessarily it's over, you're never going to do well. Find a better contractor and still work on it.
And I'm just thinking for tips, this is going to sound really biased coming from me, but like if you're going to go do this in the US, I would say hire a coach or somebody to try and shortcut this process. But if you're like, hey, I'm not going to hire a coach, I'm not going down that path, I'm just going to do it myself. I've done it in Canada. I'm just going to make a bunch of mistakes and hopefully they're not too expensive. But if you're going to go down that path, one thing I have found is if you go and talk to somebody like Chris and you work with a lender through the process, the lenders, like you're representing a lender and who's actually going to loan the money as a broker. But the lender is going to protect their own interest, which is in turn your interest. So if you are going to be one of those people that's going to skip learning and just do it, which I do love the go get them, but you are going to make a pile of mistakes.
Yeah.
But if you're going to do that, I would suggest doing a loan on the property because
Yes.
they might see holes in this property that you don't see. May have been misled by a turnkey operator, which I get a call about once or twice a month from someone getting misled from a turnkey operator because they
Yeah.
promised certain ARVs that are pie in the sky numbers and they didn't do any of their own due diligence. But if you go put a loan on this property, guess what? The lender's going to do an appraisal. If you do a fix and flip loan, the lender's going to control the money going to the contractor. The lender's going to iron out some of these things for you. So
Yeah.
anyway, there's my pitch.
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanted to talk
Yeah,
about it,
and
but
I
I'm like,
agree.
talk to
Like,
Chris if you're
yeah.
going to do this all on your own.
Yeah, if you're doing it on your own and you're renovating, the fix and flip loans, there's not a lot of options for Canadians for them, but as Glenn said, they control how the contractor gets paid. So it's a way to learn, but you're protected, not 100%, but pretty darn close to 100%. Because that lender, if your contractor said they're going to paint every room to get paid $5,000 and the lender shows up and they've painted everything but one wall, the bank will not pay them. So they are your eyes and ears with the money. So there are options, and you'll see online, oh, I'll be, bird dog, I'll go take pictures for you, which is nice, but the bank controls the money, so you're not going to get better protection than a fix and flip loan. They cost a little more, you
Yep.
pay for the draws, but yeah, as Glenn said, that is
Either way, you're paying for it somewhere. You're going to pay a
Yeah.
coach, or you're going to pay the lender, or you're going to pay
Yeah.
somebody, or you're going to make the mistake and you're using 100% line of credit and make a mistake on the buy, and then you're going to pay in a different spot because
Yeah.
the ARV doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Those little things. And yeah, you're going to pay in some way.
Yeah.
It's better to pay up front than in the long run because things can definitely go wrong.
Your stress level will be different.
Yes. We've had those sleepless nights for sure. But yeah, protect yourself. The banks, as Glenn said, they're those eyes and ears there, not you wherever you are in Canada buying, but it definitely protects you a lot more.
Okay, Chris, love all this. And for people who are like, oh, who is this Chris guy? Is it worth it? I'm working with Chris. Chris is doing lots of loans for me. So like this is somebody I trust. So do reach out to him. I think I have a slight price break on at Lens City. So you can mention me and see if you can get something.
Yeah.
But I think it's $100 off the origination. Yeah. But anyway, if you reach out to Chris, if you want to get a hold of Chris, how do they find you? Do you have an email or like some way for them to find you?
Easiest way is Chris at Lend City, so LENDCITY.ca is probably the easiest way to reach me.
And Chris is honestly the most responsive mortgage person that I've ever talked to. He responds so fast.
Yes, I will. I work weekends, nights. It's so yes, I will. My wife sometimes despises it, but yes, I do. I will respond as quick as I possibly can.
Awesome. Well, Chris, a ton of value here. I think a lot of people might understand why to use lending, understand, what kind of things they can do. And at least now they have like a contact person to reach out to, figure out, hey, can I buy this property in Florida, Arizona, Ohio, Missouri, wherever they're buying, they can, send this out and, figure out what they can do for lending. So I really appreciate that.
Perfect. Of course. Thanks, Glenn.
That was a nice video. Bye.